Markets have been recovering quite a bit over the last few sessions, though. Financials looking slightly better. What do you think is going to be the catalyst for more upside for the NSE?
I believe the bullish trend that we've seen in the last couple of weeks is actually going to be continued in the next coming weeks, because when you're looking at the interest foreign investors have actually have in the market, we're looking at how Safaricom has been, we're looking at Kenya Commercial Bank, Cooperative Bank and Equity. We're seeing that the fundamentals for most of the financials are actually pretty good. The results for the last quarter, in the last year, have been pretty impressive, and we've seen that in terms of our capital gains, we still believe, for example, a share like Kenya Commercial Bank has still at least 3 points to go to reach the bullish point of 24 shillings. So I believe, especially in the financials, we expect the financials to keep leading the pack at the Nairobi Stock Exchange.
Would you be buying financials at this stage, given that we have seen significant gains? And I think it's also interesting to note the likes of Barclays and Cooperative Bank, which of course have slashed their lending rates, and we've also seen this resulting in the share price rallying quite significantly. Give us an indication of the trends that we're going to be seeing emerge from a share perspective.
I believe this quarter is actually the tumult of what's actually going to be defining moment for most of the financials. Given the fact that Barclays Bank is actually slashed its lending rate, you've seen that it's been followed by Cooperative Bank. But what I believe is, if I had money, I'd get into Kenya Commercial Bank, because I believe it's highly discounted and it still has a margin of at least 3 shillings to appreciate. I'll get into Barclays Bank in terms of, everyone is actually looking at it in terms of it slashing its lending rate, and also look at Equity Bank, because I believe Equity Bank has actually been making heads in the financial sector with its bid to actually acquire National Bank, and also I believe with National Bank actually trying to the government trying to come out of its private business. I believe it's also a bank that many investors, and especially foreign investors, are actually looking at in terms of its appreciation. So yes, these are the counters actually getting to if you had money to buy.
All right. Well, you mentioned KCB. You mentioned that it's highly discounted at this stage of the game, but we also know that investors are getting concerned about the dilution of earnings. Is this not a point of concern for you, given that they are going to be embarking on a rights issue?
I believe the aspect of dilution actually doesn't really come up, because when you look at the fundamentals behind the stock, they actually are pretty impressive. We've seen that it's one of the leading banks in Kenya in terms of asset. We've seen that it's actually, it has an impressive regional expansion plan in Southern Sudan, in Uganda and Tanzania. And the fact that it's actually, planning to, another rights issue just definitely indicates, its expansion plan in terms of raising capital for whatever it has. And yet last week it actually did launch an impressive service that actually targeting the youth market. So I believe they might have fears, but when you look at the fundamental aspect, the fears are not really founded.
Looking at the East African Community Partner States and all the talk around that, your view on this, and clearly it's going to change the way that we view stock exchanges in that region.
I believe the way forward for the East African markets is a unified market, and we've seen that the heads of our different stock exchanges met last week, and were discussing the way forward, and they're looking at the ways on how to raise capital and which projects to actually focus on in terms of infrastructure, in terms of being able to unify the various stock exchanges. And I believe the issue that actually will determine the success or failure of this project is, one, the aspect of policy, unification of policy from the different countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, in terms of having a seamless policy in terms of how different investors from various countries can actually invest and be able to gain. We're looking at the aspect of infrastructure in terms of how it's going to be operated. You're looking at the East African Corporation, because I believe, by June we're going to have a common market. But I believe the common market, the East African Stock Exchange should actually base its policies and infrastructure on the East African, protocol market, in terms of a policy, in terms of taxation, in terms of currency. Especially currency is going to be a key issue, whether we're going to use a single currency or whether we're going to use different currencies. This will actually determine, because I don't want to invest on the the market if I know that the exchange rate is actually going to eat into market capital gains. So policy, infrastructure and currency are going to be the key determining factors.
Of course, a lot of talk about a change in currency, and I'm sure that's going to create quite a bit of caution from an investment perspective as well. How do you think investors are going to be viewing these developments? Do you think that there is going to be quite a lot of caution ahead of clarity for, of course, an East African market?
There's already a lot of caution, especially from the Tanzanian counterparts. They're looking at it in terms of, what's the process going to be like in terms of, coming up with a single currency. They're looking at how, how Kenyans are really excited about the entire prospect. Kenyans are viewed as people who actually, go-getters. So Tanzanians are looking at, one, basically safeguarding the investments, having what you call an equal playing field in terms of investment, in terms of import and export. But we also see that Rwanda is actually optimistic about it because, looking at its terrain of doing business, it has a very impressive IT platform. So despite the fears that might be compounding the process, every country is actually optimistic. And I believe the challenge to the relevant people in terms of harmonizing the project is coming up with a process that actually will cater for everyone's need and be able to address the issues.
Looking at the amount of money that was lost over the last couple of sessions because of the Icelandic volcano creating havoc with the airspace, of course, into Europe. And it's said that around 12 million shillings was lost from Kenya's horticulture industry. Quite a big blow. Kenya Airways also incurred around $1 million losses on a daily basis. So things looking slightly better at this stage.
I believe with the skies open after 6 days closure, it's been a huge blow to the horticultural sector in Kenya and, to the tourism sector, via KQ. But I believe that things are better now. It will take a while for them to recoup the losses, but I believe the government has actually come in terms of support. And I believe when you're looking at the relevant stocks like KQ at the stock exchange, didn't really suffer quite much. There was no significant depreciation of the stock because I believe whatever happened, despite people saying that the effect, especially on airlines, has been greater than what happened September 11th, I believe the losses can be recouped in the coming weeks.